Hello, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And today I have Jayden Leigh. Thank you for being here, Jayden.
Thank you. I'm very, very happy to be here.
Nice. I'm glad to have you. So Jayden is an emotions and relationships coach for moms, a speaker and trainer for one of the largest coach training schools in the world, a soon-to-be published co-author, a conscious parenting advocate, husband, and a father of two. His mission is to help create a world of emotional health and conscious connection. Tell me more about that.
Ooh, right into the juicy stuff. I love it. So really what this was born in is obviously emotional health is a really powerful thing to explore. And we're so often taught as children to suppress our emotions. Yeah. And so having that emotional health is beyond important. There's so much healing and growth in that. And so I'm very, very passionate about that. Now, as it comes to conscious connection, well, it comes down to really exploring or identifying how unconscious we all are in our daily lives and how that leads to disconnection. So essentially, the more that we're able to emotionally heal means the more conscious we're allowed to be, which means the deeper connections we're allowed to have with ourselves and others.
But the normal thing to do is avoid the emotions.
Right?
I
know. So much easier.
With job, with Netflix, with TV, with friends. Let's catch up with friends because I don't want to deal with this emotion.
Exactly right. It's rampant everywhere. And it's really, in all jokes aside, it's come to be a really full-on detriment to society and our ability to connect and grow together. And so relationships are heavily affected by it. Our children are heavily affected by it, how our generation's been heavily affected by it. And so it's up to us to start breaking those tribal cycles and really start paving the way for a new level of connection and being.
This sounds so profound and I like it. However, let's start with your relationship with your wife.
Sure thing.
How did you guys start it? Was healthy straight away? Both of you were conscious, or did you, like any of you has insecurities? How it started and has developed and how's it going?
So we were two beings of pure light who met each other and it was perfect in every way. And we haven't had a hiccup since. No.
Sorry, I needed to laugh about that. It's like, what?
No, absolutely not. So we've been together for 13 years and married for coming on 7 now, 7 soon. So we thought that we were pretty good and pretty self-aware when we started. We were kind of like the big fish in a small pond of very unconscious people that we were surrounded by, our families. We thought that we were different, but really had no vessel or no way to language it or no knowledge about any of this. And so we led our first easily 7 years of our lives being completely unconscious. Really, and if I reflect on it now, we had no idea what we were doing. We met, I added her on Facebook one day after a breakup with my previous partner from a very abusive relationship. So I got myself out of that. And
was you there? Who abused you? Who?
Who? Sorry.
Who abused who?
I was abused by my ex.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So I had to get out of that relationship. And so I was really hurt by that and was really vulnerable and was looking for some closure because I am I wear my kind of heart on my sleeve, or I did at that stage in my life because I was trying to discover myself and really know what kind of love and connection was all about. And I come across my beautiful now wife who was also, coming out of an abusive relationship as well. And again, upon reflection, there was a level of trauma bonding between us both. We were both providing and meeting needs for each other of support and connection. And I kind of knew that to some degree with the limited awareness that I had at the time. And I'd done no research or no study on any of this sort of stuff. I was a complete novice, had no idea about any of this. I just want to make sure, everyone is aware of that. But I did.
Can you give me an example of what you guys did about trauma bonding?
So I'm a talker. I would talk a lot and really like to flesh out my thoughts and my feelings about any given situation. Now, that served me very well in the relationship, but my wife at the time was kind of the complete opposite. If we are talking about attachment styles, I was the anxious attachment style, and my wife would oscillate between disorganized and avoidant attachment style. And so I would do a lot of the talking and she would do a lot of the retreating, essentially. And so we connected and really helped each other to some degree, but I found myself constantly chasing. And so I would always be wanting to talk more. And because of the traumas that she'd experienced, she was really stepping away and trying to avoid that. And regardless of all of that, we found a really beautiful balance. Surrounded by the other relationships around us in our friendship circles and things like that, we were by far the most stable relationship, like by a long shot. We were actually looked up to as like the couple that everyone wanted to be. I had a lot of pride in that. We both did. And we worked really hard on that to maintain that. And it was all about mutual respect and boundaries. But we were doing it to the limited awareness that we had available to us at that time.
Yeah.
And so is a constant building of that ever since.
Okay. And so what were the things that, when we met, you share a little bit the relationship with your wife. And you said when she started cooking or making your breakfast at 5 a.m. and you said, oh no, can you tell me more about the stories? And
my goodness, that was such a powerful kind of turning point when it came to just me and my relationship with women and my wife. So what happened essentially is it would have been probably within a month of us starting dating. I had early starts. I was getting up at like 4 o'clock in the morning for the job that I had. And I noticed that what she was doing was waking up with me. And while I was in the shower, she was getting my lunch ready, making me breakfast and all these incredible things. And for the first day or two, I'm like, wow, this woman is absolutely amazing. Like, how good is this? Like, I've got a mate. I've picked an absolute winner. This is just fantastic. I couldn't be more pleased. But then I noticed kind of on the third day, I'm like, she's really tired, but she's still doing this. And it kind of paused for a moment. And I know we'd had a few chats about her ex and what she'd endured. You know, he was quite narcissistic. And I essentially put 2 and 2 together and realized that she was doing it out of like an obligation, out of a feeling as though she had to. And as soon as I realized that, I kind of saw her in the morning and I said, hey, just want to let you know, as much as I appreciate this, you don't have to do this for me. Like, it's amazing and I love it, but like you don't have to do this for me. I don't expect it from you. And if you're exhausted, I would actually prefer you stay asleep. And this was a really big turning point so early on in our relationship, is to lay the groundwork or pave the way in how we would communicate thereafter. And so this was a really beautiful moment for me to realize as well, that to not just take advantage of the good graces of someone and actually see past it and see what's behind that, what's the motives there, and are they actually resourceful or not? Are they functional or are they dysfunctional?
I see. That's amazing that your wife in that time, she started to do that for you. But I like it a lot when you say she didn't have to. If it was her choice, it's totally fine, but she didn't have to do it. And you communicate that to her, how she felt and how she responded to that.
This was a really big learning curve for me as well, because I could see inside of her that there was a pain that she didn't know what to do with that. She'd been so neglected and taken advantage of and abused in her previous relationship. that it was so conditioned in her that just like that's how she was supposed to be, and that her sense of self-worth was tied into how she was going to be able to serve her ex. And so that's what she thought she had to do with me. So it was a really hard thing for her to realize that. But what I had to do in order to let her see that I wanted the best for her was to actually like really sit down with her and have the chat and just let her know how much it meant to me, for her to feel safe, for her to not push herself beyond what she needed to do, and not go above and beyond just because. And so, we had a lot of good chats about it, and it really helped her through it. And, there was a lot of reassurance from me, a lot of reassurance, letting her know like, hey, like, it's okay. Like, I'm not going to think any less of you. I actually think it's amazing. And I wouldn't feel comfortable you bending over backwards to do something for me that isn't in alignment with what you're capable of doing. And I know it's a small gesture, and some people might be hearing this going, oh, that's not a big deal. And it's not the logistics of it. It's not the actual behavior. It's the emotional meaning behind it that I think was really powerful. And this is what was going to be, as I mentioned before, the foundations for our way that we communicated from then on in the relationship. It's like, how do we really connect and communicate in a way that's super grounded, super open, super considerate, and understanding of where each other is at, and having patience for each other, I think is so important. So
that's so good, especially the communication. And when you said that you have to reassure what you said, or what, like, reassure everything for what was for you and what you want her to feel, but in a way of respecting her. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Great. I think that is so good, because I can imagine in her mind could go, but I am the woman, the wife. I should do this. I need to do this for him. And usually women, we fall into the trying to prove ourselves if we are good enough for the men that we are with. And for that reason, we make an effort, like your partner getting up so early when she didn't need to, and she didn't want to, but she felt obligated to do until you communicated that to her.
Absolutely
that is
right.
So important.
Yeah, and with her experience from her narcissistic partner beforehand, she's so used to being gaslit. So her trust in my word was hard. It was hard for her to trust it and not be afraid that, well, I'm just going to call her out on it later and gaslight her and make her feel even worse. So that constant reassurance and sticking by my word and saying, like, if I'm going to say that this is okay, not change my mind later and confuse my messaging, because she's already had to endure so much of that previously, and that's just not fair to perpetuate that even further, especially just to benefit me in whatever crappy way that I could. It's not right.
No, yeah, that is so good. That's my freaking loss. No, I can understand what you were saying, that you have to reassure all the time, because she didn't trust you, like trust men in generally, men, not specifically you, but she was with you in that moment, and she still is. So of course it was going to test you and do it all over again. Okay, let's keep going. So you mentioned that you work with moms, relationships coach for mom. What specifically, or tell me more about that?
So I think it might be the answer of like how I got into it in the first place, because I get asked this a lot, and
yeah, if you want to answer that, yeah.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to start being a mindset coach for dads. That's what I was really passionate about. And in my journey of personal development and healing, I started shifting away from mindset and more into emotional healing, because I found that's 10 times more powerful. And I felt the benefits in it immediately, and I started to cry and feel through my stuff that I've been suppressing for so long. And what happened was I started reaching out to men and changing my messaging over to emotions coach for men. That went down like a lead balloon, because you wouldn't believe it. Actually, men don't really typically like talking about their emotions.
I do believe it.
Exactly right.
For me, it's so normal that men avoid it.
Right, because we've
It's
just been
like,
so conditioned to, right? And so
what is the condition is toughen up, man up.
yeah, toughen up,
Basically,
man up, boys don't cry, all of that sort of horrible, horrible stuff. My goodness, I experienced it all myself. So what happened during those times when I was in my coaching practice is that a lot of women, wives and partners were actually reaching out to me and saying, hey, I love what you're sharing. Can you please have a chat with my partner or my husband? He really would do really well with what you're sharing. And I'd say, of course, I'd love to reach out and support. That's exactly why I'm here. I would reach out and reach out to these men, and I wouldn't hear anything back, or they kind of tell me to F off.
Yeah.
Right. And I was, I was really disappointed by that, but nowhere near as much as what the wives were and the partners were. And I'd still be connecting with them, and they'd be sharing their frustrations and their pains and their fears and their anger and their hurt about their partner's inability to open up. And so the more that they shared with me, the more of a connection I built with quite a few of them. And I thought, well, I can offer you help here. Like, actually might know how to serve you. Would you like to get on a call? And so before I knew it, all of my clients turned out to be mums. And so that's how I naturally fell into the space that I'm in now. And I was really focusing just on emotional regulation, expression, and feeling through your emotions, releasing the kind of emotional traumas in the body, and just being a more regulated human being. Now, what happened is the more I was coaching a lot of these mums, the more they were asking me for relationship advice as well. There's a lot of mums who are single mums who are divorced or divorcing, looking to re-enter relationships or wanting to enrich their current relationship they were in. And so I'd be sharing a lot of the techniques that I learned as a coach and having such a beautiful relationship with my wife. And so it just naturally progressed into the space that I'm in now, which is emotions and relationships. And relationships isn't just with other people, it's also with ourselves as well. And this is arguably the most important relationship that we have. And the more flourishing of a relationship we have with ourselves, the more we're able to show up and be there for other people.
Love it. Can you tell me an example of two clients, like where they were at and how you helped them with and how they are at the moment or after?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had one client who she'd been divorced for about 6 months and really had only had one partner and was wanting to go into the dating scene and found herself going to a lot of pubs and bars and really just having a lot of fun, letting loose and just enjoying herself, but realized that it just wasn't the connection that she wanted. It wasn't fulfilling her. It absolutely wasn't, but she didn't know how to do it. She didn't know how to achieve and get what she actually wanted in a relationship, which was deep and meaningful love and compassion and emotional safety and space. But society was kind of telling her that you've got to go to a bar, you've got to look super sexy, you've got to, play hard to get, you've got to do all these things. And the results she was getting were just rinse, repeat. She'd fall hard for this new guy and then, get in a lot of pain and then go out again. And the story would continue. And so it wasn't until we started doing a lot of work around that and discovering what were the patterns, the unconscious patterns playing out, what traumas were in her that she wasn't aware of that were continuing these sorts of behavioral patterns in order to try and get what she wanted in a relationship. And once we started working through those and healing through those, and then setting some new guidelines and way of entering a relationship, what to look for, how to set her own personal boundaries, how to set boundaries with others, how to control the voice in the head that wants to just make sure I message the guy or whatever that was. And how do we come up with a plan together in order to start changing the way she enters relationships? And since then, it's been absolutely beautiful for her. She's met a beautiful guy, had a fantastic relationship, and it's just growing strength by strength since then. And so it's absolutely amazing. It's really, really beautiful that we're able to achieve this. And it's not just dating advice, right? It's not just like, oh, you need to, not reply in 30 minutes or don't buy the first drink or whatever. All those, that's all crap. Like, it's so beyond what actually needs to happen. What needs to happen is we need to learn how to love ourselves. We need to learn how to have a healthier relationship with ourselves. We're all on a journey. We can't all love ourselves and then turn into rays of sunshine and be like, okay, I'm spiritually enlightened now, and now I'm going to find another spiritually enlightened person. It just doesn't work like that. We are humans. We're on this journey. We will always be on a journey to self-discovery and self-love. The idea of a healthy relationship is actually to know that you're on this journey, honor yourself on this journey, and also find someone who is on the journey as well. Not to support you, but to support themselves and doing it for themselves. If you are two people who are on a healing journey to discover self-love, then who supports each other on that journey, that's a relationship. So person one, they are on a journey of self-love. Person two is on a journey of self-love, and they do it side by side, supporting each other together. They pick each other up when they fall down, but they do not rely on each other. They do not depend on each other. The whole "you complete me" line is absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. And it's one of the worst fallacies when it comes to dating that there ever could be. It is called codependence. It's a horrible idea, and we need to just scrap it entirely.
It is a horrible idea.
Yeah.
Totally. Because I see it in a way that we are unique as we are, and we can support each other in relationships. It's like how you have done it with your wife.
Yeah.
I see that communication is so key. First, communication, and second, boundaries to improve the relationships. What do you think about what is key in relationship with a partner?
Boundaries 100% are like,
so no communication?
Okay, but communication comes with that, right? Yeah. So you need to have solid communication in order to enforce your boundaries.
Exactly.
And so communication definitely, I would say, comes first, but boundaries is where like the meat and potatoes is. So the ability to have a united front, like in how the relationship's going to go, what you both want to be aiming for, what you both want to achieve, like, and do that together. Have a clear vision. This is what I want out of the relationship. This is what you want out of the relationship. What do we both want out of the relationship? How do we do that together? How do we support each other on that? What are the parameters that we have to set in order to have a healthy relationship? What does that look like? Parameters by I mean what rules? How do we speak to each other? How do we address situations? If I'm emotionally charged, how do I need to be held? How do I need to be approached? Because we're not all perfect. We can't all control our emotions at all times. We are going to vent. We're going to flip out. We're going to have our moments. What does that person need at those times? And how do we then thank the other person for calming us down or being our support during our times of heightened emotion? How do we work as a team through all of that? How do we not let our past traumas come into our current relationship and skew it? How do we do all of these things? The conversations can go on forever. It's all about educating each other, working together to learn, okay, have we learned about attachment styles, which I just touched on before? Have we learned about attachment theory? Have we learned about what our traumas are? Are we both doing work separately and together in order to strengthen our understanding of what relationships are, of who we are as human beings, and how we can work together? The more you do that, the better. Now, incorporated in all of this, as I said, is boundary setting. Boundary setting is so absolutely important and so tethered into all of this. Boundary setting is arguably one of the most popular things that my clients need help with, because so many women have been so conditioned, set in childhood, to not have a voice, not be allowed to have their own boundaries. A lot of my clients don't even know know that they're allowed to have boundaries or know how to set them and know what they are. And so knowing what your boundaries are in the first place is a profoundly beautiful experience. And then giving the tools on how to set those boundaries and enforce them in a way that is congruent with your own values, that nourishes you, that lights you up, and that allows you to have the life and the relationships that you want. Now that's empowerment. That's beautiful.
Sincerely, everything what you just shared, I want to take notes. Because all of the questions, or just you share about the goals together, what you want to bring in the relationship, what you want to achieve, and so on. It's like, yeah, taking notes. And as well, the awareness about where one person is. Like, for example, if the woman is codependent and the guy has tendency narcissistic, how they can level up, or can be two codependents, or can be two narcissistic. I'm not sure they can be two narcissistic. But yeah, codependence, I can see that easily. Yeah. So it's so important to be aware of where we are at when we are going into a relationship. We already know who we are and we don't depend on the other person. And as well, having standards in a relationship and deal breakers, I think they're so important too, especially for people who has experienced abuse or who has codependency tendencies or anxious attachment style or fearful avoidance, etc. They're so important to have standards, because without them, it's so easy to be abused. Without deal breakers, it is so easy to be abused.
I totally agree. And some of the biggest advice that I give my clients who are looking to re-enter the dating scene, or who are fearful of leaving their current partner because of how difficult it is to find a new partner, or their fear of repeating the same thing and just, dating another guy that does the exact same thing to them. What I say is this: currently, their sense of self-worth is quite low. And so I say, if you have a low sense of self-worth and you want to start entering a relationship, you're going to attract two types of men. You're going to attract either men with low senses of self-worth, which are not typically the sort of partner that you'd want to go after, or you're going to attract men who take advantage of women with a low sense of self-worth, which would typically be the narcissistic types. And so you're going to fall into the same patterns. Now, if you start doing the emotional healing, the really deep work to start loving yourself and having compassion and kindness for yourself, forgiving yourself, and really learning about what it is that lights you up and what you value, then what happens is your sense of self-worth starts to go up. It starts to increase. Now, what happens when you enter the dating scene is this: the men with a low sense of self-worth think that you're out of their league and they won't go anywhere near you, which is great. The men who take advantage of women with low sense of self-worth will look at you and think, wow, you are too hard. I won't be able to control and manipulate you, so I'm out. And so the men that are left are men with a level of higher sense of self-worth. And they're the higher quality men, the men that you want to look for. That is the pool that you want to fish out of when it comes to the dating scene. But that only comes from your ability to do the work. It is not a man's job, just same with men to women, it is not the women's job to heal you. It is not the opposite person's job to heal you, to plug the holes in you, to fill your emotional needs. You need to do that work. You need to come whole and complete into a relationship. That is how it works. You're not a missing puzzle piece. You do not both fill each other's gaps. That is not how it works. You become whole and complete and you do it together.
I love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. And I can keep talking forever in this conversation. However, tell me where moms can find you.
Yeah, so I'm most present on Facebook. So that's Jayden Leigh on Facebook. You can add me, Jayden Leigh. I also have a website, jaydenleigh.com. I'm also on Instagram, Jayden Leigh Official, or at Jayden Leigh Official. And yeah, I love it. I am happy. I'm running a beautiful coaching program with incredible women working one-on-one and in groups. I'm just about to launch a really powerful group coaching, a 6-month group coaching container, which I cover all of the deep emotional healing to relationships and life design and so much more. It's so beautiful, and I'm so excited for it.
Amazing. Okay, for everybody who's watching or listening this, I'm going to put all of his links in the description below, so you can just go and click. Thank you so much for being here today, Jayden. I really, really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me on, Gisell.
Remember, you are the most precious treasure.